Hello, Jim Manning again. I'm the author of Patriotism Unhinged, available worldwide through online retailers, and it's available all over the world. Today, we're going to try to give you a little history for the younger people and maybe tell even the older people some things that they are not familiar with. Because you have to remember that all of the larger newspapers and magazines at the time of these assassinations and assassination attempts, they were very, very deep in CIA people working at those specific places, making sure that certain things didn't get out, because the owners of a lot of those operations were very close to the people at the Central Intelligence Agency. They didn't have to worry. In the last 10 months, I've uncovered a lot of things that I believe are true, and I think a lot of the people who make comments think it's true. And so I would say that if there was a vote by the country on how many people believe the Warren Commission still, and how many believe the Manning version of what happened, I think I would win. I try to show you the conclusion that I drew, let you be the judge, and how I did it, and what I saw, and I in turn show it to you or let you hear it from the person that we would respect, that have the right answer. And so with that, we're going to talk a little bit about the assassination of, the attempted assassination of Ronald Reagan. That happened shortly after he was inaugurated. It wasn't like, 2 years or a long period of time. Shortly after his inauguration, he was making a visit to a hotel in Washington to speak. As he exited the hotel, he came out and he was covered by Secret Service agents and also his entourage. I remember one Secret Service fellow was Timothy McCarthy, who took a bullet in the stomach but lived. Jim Brady was close to him, and unfortunately, Jim Brady took a shot to the head, and his wife, of course, became an advocate for gun control, and the Brady bill was eventually passed. There was an officer named Delahanty, I believe it was, who was shot in the neck, and he survived. So nobody actually was killed, but President Reagan was shot.
On March 30th, 1981, a would-be assassin fired 6 shots at President Ronald Reagan outside the Washington Hilton Hotel, 2 miles from the White House. Washington Post reporter Del Wilbur, author of Rawhide Down, The Near Assassination of Ronald Reagan, met us on the sidewalk where the shooting took place to tell his story of that day.
She shoots 6 shots. The first one hits Jim Brady, the press secretary, in the head. He falls down. The second one hits Tom Delahanty, who's a D.C. police officer, who had turned around to check on the president's progress. He gets hit in the back, falls down, screams, "I'm hit!" Hits the ground. Now the path to the president is clear. It's wide open. Hinckley has an effective range of 20 to 30 feet. He's done target practice. He can hit stationary targets 20 to 30 feet. Jerry Parr, the lead Secret Service agent, Reagan's lead Secret Service agent, meanwhile, in 4/10 of a second, I've tried to time it, it's very difficult, but about 4/10 of a second, has grabbed the President of the United States the moment he hears the gunfire, thrusts him behind Tim McCarthy, who is now another Secret Service agent, who swiveled his body, takes a bullet in the chest. The first bullet hits Brady, the second one hits Delahanty, the third one flies over Reagan's head and lodges in a window of that building across the street. They actually recover it. There's a kind of a cool photo of the little bullet hole in one of those lobby windows. The fourth one hits McCarthy, who's turned like this to take the bullet. He's not wearing a bulletproof vest. Hits him right in the chest, spins him around. Just as they're behind them. Jerry Parr credits Tim McCarthy with helping save the president's life at that moment. The next bullet hits the window of the armored limo window, so the bulletproof window, just as you could see the president flashing behind it with Jerry Parr pushing him in the limousine. And the sixth one cracks across the parking lot. No one knows where that one went at that moment. Then Jerry Parr gets him in the limo, someone slams the door shut, and so they drive away and they head straight out this way towards Connecticut Avenue at that moment. What they didn't know at the time was Hinckley's final shot, the sixth one, had ricocheted off the back quarter panel of the limousine. Actually, they recovered the black paint and matched it to the limousine off the bullet that was later removed from the president. And as Reagan's diving, it hits him right here on this side, right around here, and lodges an inch from his heart.
The Secret Service had Mr. Brinkley under control. In other words, somebody had one arm, somebody had another arm, somebody had him around the head. I mean, you could see it on the news. And yet, he was only able to hit people that were just right out in front. The president, however, was hit by a shot that hit somewhere on the car, got him in the left armpit. If he hadn't been in downtown Washington and got to the hospital as quickly as they had him there, he might not have made it. The person who they got, his name was John Hinckley. John Hinckley. After the news did a little bit of reporting on it, it came to pass that he was, the Hinckley family was very close to the Bush family. And I say that because Mr. Hinckley and Mr. Bush were socially together in the Texas society, and they were also in the oil business. Some of the oil business, they were in it together. That was kind of interesting. And on the night after that attempted assassination, there was a party at Neil Bush's house. John Hinckley's brother was going to be a guest at that party. They canceled the party. It started right off the bat within hours that Mr. John Hinckley had mental problems.
On the 70th day of Ronald Reagan's presidency, Vice President George Bush made his first trip back to Texas. In Fort Worth, he dedicated an historical marker at the Hotel Texas and plugged Reagan's tax cuts at the Tarrant County Convention Center. In Washington, the president made the same pitch to a Union crowd.
Thank you very much.
But both Reagan and Bush worried about a Soviet invasion of Poland. Troops massed on the Polish border as the Solidarity Union planned a national strike. In the Atlantic, a group of Soviet subs patrolled the eastern seaboard. Into this Cold War moment stepped former Highland Park resident John Hinckley with a gun from a Dallas pawn shop. It was a day when the cool-headed reaction of Bush would be overshadowed by the heavy-handed Secretary of State, Al Haig.
We'll train them well down there in Dallas, too.
With Bush aboard Air Force Two in Texas, questions erupted at the White House about who was in command and who was in control. As Bush prepared to depart Fort Worth for Austin, President Reagan stepped outside the Washington Hilton where John Hinckley fired 6 shots. Press Secretary Jim Brady and policeman Tom Delahanty were hit first. Bullet 3 struck Secret Service agent Tim McCarthy, and Bullet 5 pierced Ronald Reagan's side and entered his left lung. Air Force Two lifted from the runway in Fort Worth. A Secret Service agent told Bush there had been a shooting. Without fuel to return to Washington, the plane continued to Austin. Bush, Governor Bill Clements, House Leader Jim Wright, and Dallas Congressman Jim Collins watched network replays of the shootings on the plane's TV. In a coded cable, he overrode advice that, upon arrival, he take a helicopter to the south lawn of the White House.
From the Vice President, we will touch down at 1835 local at Andrews, land a helicopter to the observatory, and motorcade to the White House. Feel strongly about proper mode of arrival unless situation dictates more immediate route to White House.
Once inside the Situation Room, Bush took a measured tone.
My view is the more normal everything is, the better it is.
And while watching a briefing by doctors, he took a call from former President Gerald Ford.
Well, you called at a very timely moment because this doctor is just reassuring the country along the very lines I've given you. Sir, my to bed. Yes, thank you so much for calling.
To reassure the nation, Bush entered the press room.
Well, I have a very brief statement that I would like to read. I am deeply heartened by Dr. O'Leary's report on the President's condition, that he has emerged from this experience with flying colors and with the most optimistic prospects for a complete recovery. I can reassure this nation and a watching world that the American government is functioning fully and effectively.
And he visited with Nancy Reagan in the White House residence. Before ending the tumultuous day, Bush returned to his office to call family members of the 3 other men shot outside the Washington Hilton.
This is the kind of thing that I really see, that 3 weeks before the attempt, his brother, the one who's friendly with Neil Bush, tried to have him admitted to a psychiatric unit in Washington that the CIA used. It was one that whenever they needed something, that's the place that they sent people. What I didn't know until recently was that was where the Central Intelligence Agency was grooming the MK Ultra way of bending somebody's mind to their wishes. And they were working on ways that the person would do something and then later not remember it, and it couldn't be brought out by hypnotism and so on and so forth. I'm not a doctor of psychiatry. In fact, I could use a psychiatrist more than I am one. That was really interesting that instead of going to jail, they put him in that psychiatric facility. I believe it was St. Elizabeth Hospital, and he spent approximately 30 years there. You see the connection in the Robert Kennedy assassination, where a person looks to be drugged in some way, who shoots his gun 8 times and doesn't have any recollection and can't remember years later why he did it, doesn't think he did it.
Before moving on, there's one more thing that Jim intended to cover but didn't in our recording. Just like in the RFK assassination, there was an obvious assailant. The real assailant may have been hidden. In the case of the Ronald Reagan assassination attempt, it's possible Hinckley was just a ruse. Look closely at this picture from Getty Images. You'll see in a hotel room just above the area where the assault took place, someone on the balcony. Were they prepared to shoot? Were they in a shooting position? Did they shoot? At this point, we don't know.
President Ford was approached by one of Manson's dollies, Lynette Squeaky Frome. And she would be, of course, a person who you could suspect would be open to some sort of mind bending, having done some mind bending earlier in her life. Of course, the Secret Service grabbed the gun and it never went off. She had life in prison, but I think she was released in 2009. This whole thing of getting somebody doped up and getting them to do something that they can't remember or help in the investigation is something that George Bush was very, very close to the CIA and its relationship to that particular style of psychiatric inducements. He was the main guy at the CIA who dealt with that. He had a bad memory because he didn't remember where he was when President Kennedy was killed. He should have remembered because he took his son to work that day. And his son was also in Dealey Plaza. And by the way, within 2 hours, he called the Central Intelligence Agency. He told them that he was with the CIA and that they should look for a man named Parrott that he heard make aspersions to not liking Mr. Kennedy. It turns out that that was a wild goose chase. But it put him in the office of one of the police departments or sheriff's departments in Dallas. We know that he has selective memory. It's entirely possible that the idea crossed his mind if a person were to take a shot at President Reagan and kill him, that he would immediately rise from vice president to president. That way he wouldn't have to wait another 8 years to become president. I'm not saying that that's the way it happened, but I am saying that given his other moves in life, his fingerprints are over almost every terrible thing that has happened while he was alive. Firstly, when he was a junior G-man out of the Skull and Bones at Yale, I believe he stepped out of there and right into the Central Intelligence Agency. His cover was the Zapata drilling and oil company in Texas, of which they had 2 ships. One was named the Barbara after Barbara Bush, and the other one was named the Houston after their city of choice. His plane that was shot down and he was recovered in the Second World War was named the Barbara. Food for thought. It's very interesting that a lot of this information was kept from the media. They didn't want it in the media, and it was all part of what's been happening since 1947. Whenever the Dulles brothers organized the deep state and how to put it together, it becomes a problem for us now, because how do you get rid of them? How do you get rid of the deep state? I believe that the single largest issue in the deep state is the money that people get for elections, whether it's from a PAC or whether it's from a company, whether it's from the now numbers of billionaires who want to get their special person in either Congress, the Senate, or possibly in the presidency. And that means that for a relative period of time, they will not do anything that will negatively affect that large contribution. For example, we know that there have been drugs that have been researched and developed and have been sold to the large pharmaceutical companies who have put them in the drawer because they're making billions on the ones that they already have on the market. That's just one example. I bet that if we look back and saw the amount of money that was given to people in the Congress at the time of, in the 50s, I think you would find that Bell Helicopter, either directly or through their lobbyists or possibly straw men. Later, we found that 15,000 Bell helicopters were sent to Vietnam, and I don't think any came back.